You've done this before. You've watched a number on a screen tick up and thought, that's manageable. You've watched a deadline move closer and thought, I'll catch up. You've watched a small problem repeat. One more argument, one more late bill, one more, we'll fix it next week. And you told yourself it's just more of the same. Because your brain is built for straight lines, you understand twice the work, twice the reward. You understand miss 2 days, lose 2 days. You understand save a little, get a little. That's the world you can feel in your bones. And then life hands you growth that isn't a line. It's a trap door. It starts as a joke. A piece of paper, fold it once. Cute, fold it again. Still nothing. Fold it again. Still nothing. Your intuition looks at it and shrugs. I see what's happening. It's getting thicker. Slowly. And that's the mistake. That's always the mistake. Because exponential growth doesn't look dangerous at the beginning. It looks boring. It looks like nothing. It looks like you have time. It looks like you can delay. It looks like you can keep behaving the same way and deal with it later. Later is where it kills you. That's the whole point of it. You don't get warned by a dramatic moment. You don't get a cinematic turning point. You get comfort. You get normalcy. You get, it's fine. And then one day you blink and the numbers are no longer speaking your language. This is why people get wrecked by debt. Not because they're stupid, because the interest didn't feel like a predator when it was small. It felt like a fee, a tax, a little bite you can tolerate. You didn't feel the doubling. You felt the monthly minimum. This is why people get blindsided by inflation. Not because they can't do math, because 5% sounds like dust. 5% sounds like a rounding error. 5% sounds like something you can ignore while you live your life. But exponential loss doesn't ask your permission. It keeps compounding while you sleep. It keeps eroding while you're busy. It keeps working while you're distracted by louder problems. You're not wired to feel compounding. You're wired to feel events. A car crash, a breakup, a betrayal, a screaming argument in a hallway. Something that hits like a punch. Your nervous system understands punches. Compounding is a poison that tastes like water. And that's why it's so easy to manipulate you with it. Someone says, accidents are up 7% yes, and you nod like you understood it. You didn't. Not emotionally, not viscerally. You heard a little, your body heard minor. But a little that repeats becomes a monster. Not because it gets louder, but because it multiplies. People who want to lead you or sell you something love that you can't feel this. They can bury catastrophe in calm language. They can hide a doubling inside a percentage. They can serve you disaster in a teaspoon. And you will swallow it because you're trained to respond to drama, not drift. That's the trap. You wait for a moment that justifies action. Exponential growth doesn't give you that moment until it's already late. Look at how you make decisions when someone offers you a deal. $1,000 a day for 30 days. Clean, simple, linear. Your brain likes it. It can picture it. It can taste it. 30 grand. Not bad. Then the other offer. A cent, then 2, then 4, then 8. Your intuition laughs. It feels insulting. It feels like a trick. It feels like you're being disrespected. And that's how compounding wins, by looking small enough to reject. The danger is not that you pick the wrong option once. The danger is that you carry that same instinct into everything that matters. You ignore the small habit because it's just 5 minutes. You ignore the small resentment because it's not worth a fight. You ignore the small leak because it's not that much. You ignore the small decline because it's only a few percent. And then it doubles, and doubles again, and doubles again, and at some point the situation doesn't feel like your life anymore. It feels like you woke up in someone else's consequences. This is what people mean when they say, "It happened so fast." No, it didn't. It happened quietly. Then suddenly, that's exponential growth. Quiet until it isn't. Innocent until it's not. Forgivable until it's fatal. Now, here's the part nobody likes because it removes your excuse. You can't trust your intuition here. You don't have one. You have instincts for predators, not percentages. You have instincts for social danger, not mathematical danger. You have instincts for a rival's tone, not an interest rate. So if you insist on using your feelings as your instrument panel, you will drive straight into the wall and swear the wall came out of nowhere. It didn't. You just weren't reading the right gauges. The unspoken rule is this. In a world of compounding, the early stage is where all the power is. That's where the leverage is. That's where the outcomes are still cheap. That's where small actions actually matter. Later, when it finally feels serious, you're usually paying 10 times the price for the same effect. Because the system has momentum now. It has mass. It has velocity. It takes more force to move it. People who understand this don't look disciplined. They look calm. They don't panic late. They adjust early. And that calm reads like arrogance to people who are still waiting for the dramatic moment. This is why the smartest people you know seem almost boring about risk. They do the math in their head even if they don't call it math. They convert percentages into realities. They translate growth into time. They don't hear 7% and think 7. They hear doubling. They don't hear 5% inflation and think 5. They hear, your money is bleeding out over a decade. They don't hear, we're growing 10% a year, and celebrate like children. They ask, how long until this doubles? And then, what breaks when it doubles? Because nothing compounds forever. Nothing. And the people who forget that always end up shocked when the ceiling shows up. Every system has a limit. Every trend hits a wall. Resources run out. Attention runs out. Patience runs out. Capacity runs out. Reality always collects. But here's the more brutal truth. The ceiling doesn't warn you either. It doesn't arrive with a press release. It arrives as strain. It arrives as delays. It arrives as errors. It arrives as the quiet feeling that the thing you built is starting to eat itself. Growth consumes. That's what it does. It consumes oxygen. It consumes sugar. It consumes time, staff, trust, goodwill, cash flow, sanity. You can compound success right into collapse if you don't understand what the growth is feeding on. And most people don't ask that question. They only ask, how do we get more? That's why you see the same pattern everywhere. Businesses that scale and then rot. Relationships that intensify and then implode. Careers that accelerate and then burn out. Because compounding doesn't just multiply outcomes, it multiplies costs. If you're not measuring both, you're not thinking. You're just hoping. And hope is not a strategy. Hope is a sedative. Now, if you want to be dangerous, in the quiet way, you start doing something simple and unglamorous. You translate. You stop accepting percentages as small or big based on vibe. You convert them into time and consequence. You hear a growth rate and you immediately ask, how long until it doubles? Not because you're trying to be clever, because you're trying to be awake. You stop letting people talk to you in SAS. Politicians, bosses, salespeople, your own friends. People will always prefer to describe reality in soft language. It keeps them safe. It keeps you calm. It keeps the moment comfortable. but comfort is how you get robbed. So you become the person who makes it concrete. Not out loud, necessarily. You don't need to lecture. You just need to see. You don't say, "That's alarming." You say inside yourself, 10 years and it doubles. You don't say, "Inflation is annoying." You say, 14 years and my savings is cut in half. You don't say, "This habit isn't a big deal." You say, "If this keeps doubling, where am I in 6 months?" And you don't wait until you feel fear. You don't wait until it becomes a crisis. Because by the time it feels like a crisis, it already has momentum. This is where Machiavelli would just stare at you like you're slow. Not because he's evil, because he's realistic. He understood timing. He understood that the same action has different costs, depending on when you do it. He understood that early moves look unnecessary to people who can't see the future, and late moves look desperate to people who can. He would tell you, without romance, that most people don't lose because they're weaker. They lose because they move at the wrong time. They act when the price is highest. They speak when the room is already against them. They try to fix what has already compounded, and then they call it bad luck. So here's your pivot, and it's not inspirational. It's clinical. When something is compounding, money, risk, resentment, advantage, attention, you stop negotiating with your intuition. You put a tool between you and the lie. A calculator, if you need it. A quick mental conversion. A rule of thumb. Anything that turns a vague rate into a clear consequence. Because the moment you can name the consequence, you can act before it becomes expensive. And your actions get smaller, not bigger. That's the part people don't expect. You don't need dramatic interventions. You need early corrections. You pay attention to the small signs. You respect drift. You respect slow leaks. You respect only a little. You don't argue with the person who's already baiting you into a spiral. You don't let the conflict compound. You exit early. You go quiet sooner than you want to. You use fewer words than you're tempted to use. You don't let a bad month become a bad year because you were too proud to adjust. You don't let a minor boundary violation become a culture in your relationship or your workplace because you didn't want to seem difficult. You don't let yourself get hypnotized by linear thinking in a world that punishes it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You start noticing how many people live inside a math problem they refuse to acknowledge. They tolerate. They delay. They rationalize. They see how it goes. And then they act surprised when the doubling arrives. You won't be surprised anymore, because you'll know the ugliest truth about exponential growth. It doesn't feel like anything until it feels like everything. And by then, you're not deciding. You're reacting. So you decide earlier, quietly, coldly, on purpose. Because in a compounding world, the person who moves first doesn't look brave. They look calm. And calm is what power looks like when it actually understands the numbers.
Thanks for spending time with us. If this sparked a new way of thinking, hit like and subscribe to keep the ideas flowing. And don't forget, check the description for the links to the original books and resources we used today. We'll see you in the next one.